Musical Talk, the UK's independent musical theatre podcast. And we start this week with a song from the sellout Edinburgh show, Stop the Train.
There's been a crash and I'm the wreck. You bailed out to save your neck. There's a hole, and it's you that made it. Someone's lying on the ground. Crowds of people gather around. There's a hole, and it's you that made it. And the last thing that you saw was someone reaching out to you. And the last thing that you heard were your own lies. I've moved up and I've moved on, but the damage that you've done permanently breaks these ties. Look at the damage you've done. Once we were two, now I'm one. You went and left me all alone, and now I stand here on my own. You're gone. Look at the damage you've done.
Fallen out and fallen down, scattered debris all around. There's a home, and it's me that made it. Stop the engine, hit the brake. I guess I was on the take. There's a home, and it's me that made it. And the last thing that I thought was I'd be lost without you. And the last thing I let slip was my disguise. You've moved up and you've moved on, and the damage that I've done, you say permanently breaks these ties.
Look at the damage you've done.
Look at the damage I've done.
Once we were two, now I'm one.
Once we were two, now I'm
You
one.
went and left me
I
all
went and
alone,
left you
and now
all
I stand
alone.
here
I'm
on
sorry,
my own.
you're gone. Look at the damage we've done.
Look at you now.
Look at you now.
You're faking injury.
Look at you now.
Look at you now.
You blame it all on me. Deep inside, I know you know.
You should have never let me go.
Look at the damage we've done. Once love was here, now it's gone. We went and left it all
went and
alone.
left it
And
all
now it's left
And
us
now
all
it's
alone.
left us
We
all
caused each other
alone.
senseless
We caused
pain.
each other
We fought
senseless
and
pain.
lost
We
without
fought
a
and
gain.
lost
Love's gone.
Look at the damage we've done.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Musical Talk. I'm Thos Ribbits, and I hope it's not too far into January for me still to be able to wish you a happy new year. Or, if you've recently had significant plastic surgery on the side of your head, a happy new ear. Well, you've just heard a song called Damaged, which is one of 3 songs I've had the pleasure of playing several times on Musical Talk since the summer, because it comes from a show which was a sellout at last summer's Edinburgh Festival Fringe called Stop the Train by Rick Gard and Phil Nice. And it was one of those shows that people were talking about from even before it opened. It seemed to have a certain buzz about it at last year's summer festival. And I'm delighted to say that every single ticket sold out. It was a complete smash hit in Edinburgh, and I hope is going to go on further so that more people can get to see it, because there's clearly something special about it. As you can appreciate, in the Edinburgh Festival Fringe there are thousands, literally thousands of shows competing for attention. And so if a single show can cut through that melee, that noise, the brouhaha, then it's worth catching up with. And that's exactly what I did. Having seen the show and liking it, alongside an old friend of this programme, Michael Gordon Shapiro, the noted composer, who also liked the show and who's reviewed it very positively on an earlier episode of Musical Talk, I thought the best thing for me to do would be to sit down with one of the creators to find out more about Stop the Train. And so, for the rest of this programme, that's exactly what you're going to hear. An interview with Rick Gard, who, in addition to being a very talented creator and producer, is also a very nice man. Let's hear about Stop the Train. Musical Talk.
Well, hello, my name's Rick Gard. I'm from the brand new musical Stop the Train. I am the writer and the producer, first-time producer.
And first time in Edinburgh, I think.
That's right. I came here as an actor about 10 years ago, thoroughly enjoyed the experience, but didn't know what I was doing, was making it up as I was going along, and I've always wanted to come back with a piece. Decided I was going to come back this year with a brand new piece, which I've written, my first musical I've written, and I am over the moon with the results so far.
Well, I think you have every right to be, because Stop the Train is a fantastic show, and what's marvellous about it is it's premiering here in Edinburgh, isn't it?
That's right.
And it feels completely fully formed. I know it is fully formed.
That is music to my ears.
But not every... well, thank you. Well, it was literal music to my ears, of course, it's a musical. But not all shows arrive in an absolute tip-top sort of super polished state. This is well written, it's well performed, it's well produced. Everything about it is really good.
That's very kind, thank you.
So, let's start with the bare bones for our listeners. Would you care briefly, without giving anything away, of course, because we're lucky to go on tour and come to a theatre near you, give us the bare bones of the story, if you can.
Oh, Stop the Train is about a group of commuters who are on a train every day. They spend time with each other, probably more time than they do with some of their families, but the idea is they see each other every day, but they never communicate. And we've devised something that happens that makes these people come together, and as a result we get to know all their little idiosyncrasies, their private lives, their secrets, and we show all their lives and their stories in a kind of juxtaposition between that harsh reality and fantasy, and all that comes out in song.
That is a very fair way of putting it, and we'll explore that a little bit more as we go on, if I may. But so what's the history of it? How did it come about?
My background is in writing music for pop artists. I was an artist myself. I was with Universal for quite a number of years, and I've been working with the same co-writer, a guy called Phil Rice, who I've been working with since I was 17 at college.
Well, Andrew Lloyd Webber has historically done well with someone called Rice, so I don't see why you
Yes,
shouldn't.
yeah, it's good, it's good. So yes, we've been together working for a long time. As I say, we had our own career in that, and we've always talked about musicals. We both loved musicals, but wanted to do something a little bit different, so we talked, and eventually, a couple of years ago, we actually sat down and started writing it. As you said rightly, is premiering here, but we've done what we call workshop shows. So we've done 6 workshop shows where we've done in different areas around where we're from, the northwest of England. And we've put a show on, looked at the reaction from the audience, gone away, rewritten it, changed some songs, put some in.
It's a workshop performance rather than a workshop, because some workshops are just with actors, aren't they, and the production and the writers too.
So yeah,
it out in an enclosed environment.
Exactly.
You were when I say this, I mean it nicely. You were exposing yourself.
Absolutely, I have been known to. Yes. So yes, the idea was that there's nothing better than an audience to tell you when you've got it right or run it wrong. So we'd spend a week with the actors, getting it where we thought it was right, put it in front of the audience, and where it drops, we'd cut it out. Where it works well, we'd heighten that. So that's been the process. The actors have given a lot of time to rehearse, and we're very proud of how slick it is.
Yes.
But I'm also very aware, seeing it in front of an Edinburgh audience, what needs to change.
You're still learning things.
Straight away, I'm seeing weaknesses that I want to put right from the way they react, because That's what it's all about. It's constant refinement. Somebody told me very early on, you never write a musical, you rewrite it.
Yes.
And it couldn't be more true. And things go out of fashion very quickly, references go out of fashion.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make it as universal as possible. I always had in the back of my mind that because it's based on a city train, I wanted it to be that it could be any city.
Oh, yes.
And that, I'm very thankful to say, seems to have worked, because I got a gentleman who came up to me yesterday from New York who said, this reminds me of my trip every day in and my commute. And he said, this will work, this is it. And he's been in 3 days in a row now to see it. We've only done 4 shows so far. So I'm very pleased.
Card, doesn't he?
I think he will do it this rate. He may get a free ticket if he comes for the whole 2 weeks.
So, historically, in terms of writing, because you performed, which I think gives you a very good grounding for how things structurally work, even if you've just organically learned how to do that. But, forgive me, how do you delineate the work? You have your co-writer.
That's right.
Is it one of these cases where one of you writes the book, one of you writes the songs, one of you writes the lyrics? Are you an organic fusion body?
It really is. That's a perfect way of looking at it. An organic fusion. I like that. I'll use that in the next interview. Thank you. But that's what it is. I mean, we have our penchants for certain things. I love lyrics. I love top line, melody. But at the same time, we do it all between us. And the same with the book. You know, nothing gets past either of us. We both sign it off, and we both have the input. So it is a very democratic situation, and we've working together for years, and we hardly ever fall out. We just never go forward with something unless we both agree.
Well, that's a very good and democratic way forward as well.
It seems to work.
I've got to ask you a couple of questions. I mean, these are nuts and bolts questions in some way, but you were talking about how that you'd be kicking ideas together until you came up with something that made it gel.
Yes.
So it's definitely book first.
No,
Oh.
The idea of the book first. Then we started a few of the songs, and then wrote the book, and then finished the songs, then rewrote the book, and then rewrote the songs, then it
Right.
keep changing.
So once again, it's the organic development kind
Absolutely,
of thing. Fine, 'cause,
absolutely.
some people will say, well, once I got the book right, that then told me what my plot was and where the nexus points are to put the songs in, etc., etc. But the way you've done it is equally valid in the sense of actually, well, we've changed this, so we then changed that, and then that made us change this.
Yes.
And that's fine too, because there is no textbook way of writing a musical.
No, it's doing a
If there was, we'd all
jigsaw
do it.
in the dark, isn't it? That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So, I would like to talk a little bit about the concept of the piece, because, and this is why I think this show is so successful compared to others of a family of kind of shows to which it could be described to belong to, if I can use a slightly long-winded sentence. There have been over the years, and this is my 10th year in Edinburgh, I love it every year, and of course one of the opportunities of coming a lot is seeing a lot of shows that you might not see, or you
Yes.
may never see again.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if a show is good or bad, because, for £10 or whatever it is, you can afford to take some chances. And
Uh-huh.
it opens and broadens people's horizons, so it's a wonderful thing as a festival. But that also means that I've seen trends and developments, and I don't want to damn this show, because I don't, it's a fantastic show, but what I'm saying is there's a kind of show, I've seen a number of shows which are set on trains or railway platforms,
Right.
and have taken, to a degree, the same concept of, you've got a similar group of people who meet on a day-to-day basis because they're commuters,
Yeah.
who don't talk. The isolation, how do we break that up? And in most of these shows, and it becomes a little samey after a while, there's no obvious, when I say linking narrative, but there's no facilitator that allows the conversations to take place. So you get this, what I sort of think of as the Tisch School argument, which is that you have someone stands up and tells their story, and then someone else
Yes.
will tell their story, and then someone else will tell their story. And it might be that the plot is clever enough to link those stories in some incidental way, and so it sort of meshes into a fugue of stories. That's the theory, I think. It doesn't always work as smartly, as cleverly as that. And that's a perfectly valid way of doing
Uh-huh.
it. There's a show up here in Edinburgh at the moment. It's not set on a train, but it is for individuals whose lives intertwine with each other whilst not necessarily connecting directly in most cases, called Ordinary Days. It's actually a very good piece, very well written, beautifully performed, and actually it's I can't criticise it, except I've seen the kind of thing so often. What I really like about Stop the Train is you have found a much cleverer way of making this work. So you have found, without revealing what it is, a kind of narrative character who fits in within the world it works. Like any drama, something unusual happens at the beginning, and then the reactions to it take place as a result. So this character, and he is a character, and he's an enigmatic character. You really don't know what his motivations are. You really don't know if he means what he says, and he turns on the sixpence as well. So he's got a lovely little bit of edge. So he provides
Yes.
for jeopardy, if you like.
Yes.
So you've come up with this clever framework device, which then allows the characters to explain who they are and interact and things like that. And I found that so much more satisfying than just it's my turn now, I'll stand up. So
That's good to know.
Well, no, but forgive me, you've given a perfectly acceptable canon of musicals a beautiful new twist. And it needed it, frankly. Because if it had just been, it's now my turn to stand up and sing my want song, I would have said very nicely done, but not as good as it is as it actually is.
Well, I can't say that is entirely by device. Now, there's one thing that I will say, it may put me in a bad light, but I'm going to be honest as well.
Thank you.
Is that Phil and I, my co-writer, we purposely stayed away from musicals and plays. We're not well versed in this form at all, and we wanted to make sure that we came from it from another point of view. So if we've broken theatre conventions, it's not being clever, it's because we're not knowledgeable.
Well, no, I don't think you've broken theatre conventions. It is just, how shall I put it? It's not a convention, it's just that it has become there's a particular kind of musical that feels like this.
It's become a style of it, okay.
And I love the fact that there are, and it's not just this musical, there are other musicals where people have said, well, this is my first musical. I think not being trapped by the tradition or the conventions, or even just the fashion, let's be honest, because like all forms of drama, there are fashions and fads in musical theatre as there is in everything else.
Absolutely.
Is rather wonderful. You know, you came to your plot independently, and you independently saw what the problem might be if you did it in one way, and you overcame that. And I think that's, forgive me, this is all positive. Everything
well,
about
it's
this is good.
wonderful
I'm really
to hear because, as I say, because we're new to this genre and we're really enjoying it. We take. The goal is to get it right, and I don't care where the criticism, be it destructive or constructive, comes from, as long as the final goal is something that entertains everybody. This is a process for me, and in our minds, if we thought for any minute we've reached that goal, then we're fools. We have a long way to go. It's shining, it's honing.
You're certainly at the top of the staircase, though, if you don't mind me saying. I can certainly say that. Another thing I really liked about the narrative, and we'll move on to the score a little bit later, but what I really liked about the narrative as well was the fact it completely twists and turns with you, because sometimes, once again, it's stand up, my song, sit down, next person stand up, sit down, what I've been talking about. What I like here is that people are revealed in many cases to have slightly different motivations to what you might think they do, and you keep doing that all the way through, and that's good. That keeps it pacey, it keeps it interesting. So at no stage did I, as an audience member, and indeed I was there with a friend of mine who's a composer, and he felt exactly the same way, that, you know, you get through, like all musicals, there's a song, so there's an episodic sense to it, because you have dialogue, song, because that's how they work. And in this case, you have different characters explaining things, so you can if it was a book, you would have chapters. But at the end of each chapter, you think, oh, the story we were in has just gone slightly off kilter. I don't mean off, I just mean it's not going in the direction I thought it was. Right, we're going down this path now. Next character says what they're doing, and you see how that connects, and you think, oh, right, now we're going in this direction. And what I really liked as well, that it was mirrored in the direction of the piece. Did you direct, or...?
No, I didn't. We've got a wonderful new director called Owen Phillips, who's he's actually he lives locally to me, and I found him by chance, and we worked together on a couple of things. And he's very bright. He's great with cast. They understand him. He's a young guy. He's only early 30s, but everybody responds to him of all ages. He's a wonderful. I'm very impressed with him, is all I can say, and I hope to work with him a long time in the future.
So am I, because often in these kind of musicals, and I'm going to call it the train musical.
Yeah, sure.
The set, quite understandably, stays static. Now, what you've got is very authentic British Railways kind of train seats on wheels, and that allows them, first of all, to be wheeled off stage or moved around to allow dance sequences or songs to take place, and then they are put back, but they're not always put back in the same orientation to the way they were. What I really like is the fact that, yes, absolutely, when it reassembles and we're back into the sort of the cross dialogue between the characters, the train has sometimes is in the other direction, which means that you get to see other. Everyone's sitting in the same orientation to each other, but the train itself has moved around, the set has moved around, so you're seeing it from a different angle, which I think cleverly is symbolically what's happening as well in the narrative.
Absolutely.
You know, with every revelation, you're seeing it from a different angle.
I'm glad you saw it like
that. Well, no, but it just creates a multi-layered sort of cohesive whole. And many a show has been ruined by lack of cohesion. So it seems to me that the book and the direction are very nicely married here.
Good.
To push forward the story as it develops.
That's good to hear. I personally have a hang-up with bad set. I always have them. When I've been to see things, and I know the whole idea is that people have limited budgets, and we all do, and the idea is to make it look as good as possible. But to me, bad set looks worse than no set at all.
You can cheapen sometimes you're better just doing black box and 4 chairs.
Yes.
There's a very, very excellent title of show up here, which is A Black Box and Four Chairs, and it works perfectly. So you're quite right, But if they had tried to do clever backdrops or something like that, then it might not have worked. I don't think you do it for that play anyway. But
Well, somebody also told me you only have longevity in a show if it can be done in a school hall. So in other words, if kids can't, if you take Grease, everybody can make a little car at the front and do Grease lightning. So we've got 8 chairs, and that's it. So if it'll work with that, it'll work with anything.
But it really does look. You put your money up front, if I may say, as well. So that doesn't hurt. It looks quite lavish in its own way.
No, that's good.
Bearing in mind it's a 10-minute in, 10-minute out show, as all shows in Edinburgh are.
Yes.
I think you've found a perfect balance between that mobility that you need.
That's good to hear.
And it looking fab on stage. Those seats look really comfy as well, I must say. But there we are.
They are,
yeah.
But not when you were carrying them up and down the stairs and get in and get out.
Particularly as there's sort of 8 of them or whatever, isn't there? So let's talk about the score, if I may.
Sure.
Now, how would you describe it tonally?
That is a difficult one. Both Phil and I have a very eclectic background in music.
I think that came across.
Yeah,
by
good.
the way, yes.
Good. Well, it may confuse some people. It's exactly how we wanted it, though. We've got a background in pop music, but we also very much love classical music, and we've written for artists in the swing style.
I was going to say the standards, because forgive me, the song that the banker character sings.
Yes.
Starts off with a borrow, and not melodically, but sort of percussively from Sing Sing Sing, or so it seems to me.
It's about 10 different borrows, I'd say. I take the old thing that there's nothing new. There really isn't. So it's a case of drawing on your greatest influences and making sure they're original and adding to them.
Well, and of course, when I say that, I don't want anyone to go away thinking that these are songs that you're influenced by them, but they're not rip-offs. So the drum beat, I thought, well, I think I know which territory you're in here, and then you had the character was performing in what looks like a sort of sleazy 1940s dive kind of thing, with glamorous ladies dancing around him, and what do they used to say in The Music Man? Libertine men and scarlet women. So it's that kind of concept. But so that's a good example actually of a good character song, because he's a character actually who has a through line in terms of the plot, as they all do, but his is quite a strong one, an important one. And then you have others. Now, I'm going to talk here. You've also used video very effectively as well. So normally you've got a projected backdrop, which for the most part is the window and wall of a train carriage.
Yes.
So you have scenery passing and things like that, and crowds. Perfectly so standardly a train. But then when a character is standing up, in most cases giving us their secret, because that's what it's about. It's revelations of who they... It's revelation, isn't it? It's peeling off the image, peeling off the insularity of society.
It's the cover being inside, the book's inside, we get to see the book.
Yes, absolutely. Not judging a book by its cover, as it were. What was fantastic was then, if you like, almost, you're too young for this, but there was a program called Play School which had a series of windows, and when they used to cut to Telecine to tell a 5-minute film story, you would go through one of the windows. And so what would one of them was a square window, as it happened. So every now and then we would, as in this Stop the Train, the window, if you like, from the carriage would come forward on the projection, and then we would cut into a video backing to give contextualization to what we were seeing on the stage. Now, sometimes video projection can be disturbing because we're all so trained these days now. If there's a screen in a room, our eyes automatically go to it.
Yes.
And, you can have breakfast, but if it's a television in your hotel room or in the dining area, it's on. You can't help but
You're drawn naturally to it.
It just, we live in a world of screens. Yes, the first lines of the Mikado come through here, where the gentleman of Japan saying on many a screen and fan. I think the screens have changed, but it's still true. The video footage helps underline the story. So when did you decide, as a production team, that you wanted to do slightly more than just have your performers performing on stage with their songs and their secrets?
The idea of the projection was there from day one, when we had the first kind of production meeting. We knew we wanted an extra element to make it a little bit different, and it was about my hang-up with scenery. And I thought, if there's going to be some scenery, if there's going to be some context, I want the images to be strong.
And they were. Yeah.
That's good to hear, thank you. It's not a brand new, lots of people have used projection, but we intend to develop that as we go in further on in the production, to use different types of projectors, curved projectors, etc. Hopefully as budgets grow.
Cinerama.
Precisely,
Todd AO, if you want to go back far enough, yes.
So that there is, the scope again to develop that.
CinemaScope, yes.
Yeah. You're too quick for
that
me
one's
this
been
morning.
done, yes. I think someone got there before us.
Unfortunately.
So, now there is a, not that it shows here, but there is a danger with projections featuring footage of the actors that you've got in case your acting cast ever changes.
Of course.
So is that something you sort of factored in? Because...
Truthfully, it isn't.
Oh.
Truthfully, it isn't. You know, I'm going to use that word all the time. It's budget. We are a small show on a small budget, and if a number of things had taken a different direction, we'd have been in trouble. Edinburgh is a gamble. I've got here on my own steam financially and put it together in
a
the whole.
well-trodden path. That.
And it looks like it's paying off, but it's obviously a big gamble, and these things you've just got to go for it, haven't you? If you believe in something, you have to go for it.
Yeah, well, there's no point in doing something half-cocked, frankly.
No, absolutely.
There really isn't.
But with the projections, I'm still very aware that sometimes, even for me, I find the screen a little bit distracting. Sometimes it's there supportive, but again, this is the refinement I was talking about, the honing. Over the last few shows, I've seen things that I want to change slightly. So,
well, it's funny you should say that, because later on in the piece, there are some more romantic songs, or at least tender songs. I won't say how and who, but except to say that there is a couple in this of sorts, and
yes.
their story develops as it goes along, and like a lot of that kind of stories, that sort of culminates at the end,
yes,
or near the end. And so you do have the tenderer songs, if you like, at the end, or so it seems to me. And you're very clever because you downplay the projections quite thoroughly there. It's
yes.
The projections seem to be, if you like, a visual representation of people's imaginations and the fantasy world in which they live. Whereas when the reality of the romantic situation comes to whatever head it comes to, it is in fact actually essentially just the actors themselves speaking about what's happening then.
And the image just reflects that emotion
exactly,
rather than displaying it.
There is some contextualisation, but
yes.
it's rain falling and leaves, and
yes.
slightly more sort of autumnal.
More subtle.
Yes, yes, exactly. That's right. Yes, it's not girls dancing around in a speakeasy or whatever it is, fine, or gambling balls,
yes.
dancing inside an enormous lottery machine. So I quite like that as well. It knows when to tone itself down. The projections. You were talking about let's do the projections properly, but not to be swamped by your projections.
Yes, absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about development and changes, because you've been very honest in saying, I can already see things that need to be tweaked, twiddled and polished. But also you were talking about during the workshopping period there were things. So
yes.
I'm going to ask, forgive me if you're able to tell me, in terms of its development, were there characters which have come and gone? Were there other plot strands? And as they're no longer in it, presumably you're more at liberty to tell me about those without ruining anything that happened.
Yes, there was one character particularly that was shot to pieces because of Brexit.
Oh, really?
And how can I describe it?
And that's only a few months ago, so it must have
absolutely.
been a fairly major headache.
It was a complete headache.
You'd
but
been committed to Edinburgh by then, wouldn't you?
Yes. And it worked for the better. The edit we've done has actually turned out as one of the songs that people really reacted to, so it's wonderful these things happen to sent to try us, then sent to help us. But yes, we had a character called Ilya, who was a Polish girl over here studying, training to do a career in dentistry.
Oh, right, okay.
And the whole thing was very, very, how can I put it? It was very subtle way of saying, approaching the Brexit thing, of saying that we take people who come over here to work for us at the face value, and we don't think about their backgrounds, what they're here for, the good they do for the country. And I suddenly realised, if we're coming to Edinburgh, people are going to think this is some sort of political statement.
Yeah, it's not a
and
polemic
that's the
show at all,
last thing
it?
it was at all. It was, it was supposed to be a very open-minded, positive response to it. And I thought, I just don't want somebody to come in and say that was great, but why did they go down the Brexit route? And it wasn't to be like that. And I realised suddenly that it would very quickly date it. It would politicise it for all the wrong reasons, and that's not what we're about. We hold our hands up purely and say this is about entertainment, nothing else. We have something to say, but what we have to say is we want to entertain you, and that's it. That's the end of it. So took all those elements of politics out less than a month ago.
You say it hasn't got a message. It's got a sort of message, however. I think you mustn't undersell it, which is in fact
not political though.
Oh no! It's a social message in
yes.
a sense, which is actually that it's very easy to become distracted. In fact, we've spoken about it already. It's very easy to become distracted by our screens,
yes,
and forget about the humanity of which we are ourselves part, and with which we spend most of our time on this earth. So there is an issue about connection and making a connection. And also grabbing things while you can, the carpe diem aspect.
And
of it
that
all.
relation of grabbing it, but also the fact that our time is not limited. And the time is, again, it's not a new concept, but it's one we must constantly be reminded about, because this is our life and we have nothing else. We literally have nothing else, that we have an allotted time. And I think any chance to remind myself or anybody else about that, I will do, because that's the most important thing in life to me. And if we can spend it, in entertainment or engaging with people, communicating, surely that's the better way to do it than looking at a screen and being insular.
And also doing it in a way that people can engage with in a non-lecturing kind of a way as well.
Yes.
There are a couple of very nice points. The facilitating character, shall we call him, has an obscure motivation. There's a throwaway line that sort of hints at something, but it is a throwaway line, and no one picks him up on that. They then move on to their own situation, and then he carries through, and then he comes to his resolution, such as it is. He comes to an ending, as the piece does. So it's rather splendid, and I do like this. And as I say, I was there with a composer friend from America, and he liked this too. That actually he is left ambiguous, and that works for the character all the way through as well. Because, forgive me, it is possible, as I've said before, that this kind of character can set up the situation and then almost fall into the background. My work here is done. I've set up the framework. My frameworking is finished. You get off and tell your stories. He doesn't. He keeps coming back. He is also, forgive me, there's a touch of anger in him.
Absolutely.
And therefore he's got an edge. He does provide this jeopardy. And he provides the jeopardy in a number of ways as well. There's the big jeopardy threat, but there's also moments of mood swing, and so he's got a bit of teeth, that character.
Absolutely.
But I love the fact that he's got these teeth, he's got these motivations, but we don't quite know how he's got to those motivations. It's lovely to leave that slightly undone. He's as much as an enigma at the end of the piece as he is at the beginning, I think. Deliberate?
Absolutely, deliberate. I must say that we did think earlier on, should he be more rounded? Should he have some more backstory? But then we realised that if we did that, it made it quite obvious. It's like you say, you're setting up that character is then done.
Yeah.
We like to hint these little things that you pick up about his background, how he got to the point he is at, and I think that makes more sense of why he's so desperate to convey his message to the others.
And that desperation comes out in these mood swings, and then those mood swings then result in certain actions. And that is one of the things that also helps drive the narrative in terms of the twists and the turns. You think, oh, well, here we are. Oh, no, suddenly we're not, because he's doing this. I didn't think he was going to take any part in this bit, but there he suddenly does. And, this is all very good. He's interwoven into it, but he's not hammered home, as sometimes is the case.
Right.
Sometimes people think they do have to give a motivation to every character, and so everyone goes home with every I dotted and T crossed, and you don't actually always want that in a piece, particularly if his function isn't actually about him. His function is about facilitating the piece to get the other messages across. He has a valid role, but it's not the story of the enigmatic man. The enigmatic man is part of the bigger story.
Yes.
So we were talking about the things you've learnt from the workshopping and characters which have come and characters have gone. Who was Ilya replaced by? Do you mind my asking? Was it the?
It was the plastic makes fantastic lady.
Yes, I wonder the northern student. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and she, once again, she's a fine example of character. She starts off quite demure when she's explaining who she is, and you think, well, I think I've got the handle on her. And she's sort of talking about the non-friendliness of people in the south compared to the north, so she's used to community, and in a big city you lose that, etc. And you think, well, I can see we know so far, so well known, and she's working to the betterment of mankind, and she wants to become something medical, and she's learning that, and then suddenly the thing that she wants to do is not what you think it is, and the audience just go, oh. And it's beautiful. Once again, it's a rug pulling exercise, but it was fantastic. There's a lot of that all the way through. And you asked one or two of your actors to be very brave, I think. How did you find your actors?
Through different processes. I do believe, like everything else, as I've always worked in music, you find people through people.
Yeah, it's a network, isn't it? Really?
It really is. If you just do blanket auditions or whatever, you often the people are so randomly often can't work together. So I always start with them. I say always. It's the first time I've done it.
I shall always.
I shall always. Thank you. Start with a good couple of people that I know that I trust from there ask to audition from their pool of friends, and then if there's a gaping hole, then do a blanket audition. But we found a lot of people through other people. As along the way, we've had a few dropouts of people that haven't fit quite right.
Yeah,
with,
or if
you
a
know,
character changes.
Exactly.
You can't always fit, you know.
Exactly. But I must say that the cast are incredibly invested in it. They've given us a lot of time and gone, beyond
Yes.
the pale, as it were. And you name it, they've gone all the way. They've been wonderful.
In one or two cases, you have, there's a big ask of one or two, and I'm
Yes.
thinking particularly of our lawyer character.
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything about what happens to him and what his secret is, except to say it's larger than life.
Well, all I can say about that is he's the sort of character that would do that anyway.
Oh right, he's an up for it kind of a man. Is
He's
he?
a
Yes,
wonderful,
right.
wonderful guy, yes, and he was very happy to do it and thoroughly enjoys it. It's not a stretch for him.
He's got such a lovely voice as well, so you really buy into him as this lawyer on the train who's
Yes.
just trying to get to his chambers or whatever it is, and then
Then he has revealed somewhat.
yes, in every direction. So and that's what's lovely about it. So your actors are fully engaged, and you can
Yes.
see that. There's full investment in the piece, which is charming. What have you been learning from your Edinburgh audiences then? You've only had 4 shows, you say, but you have been picking up tweaks and twiddles. I appreciate this is merely a buffing exercise in some sense, isn't it? if I may be so, may use that terminology.
Absolutely. Well, the thing I've realised more than anything is that the same line never works with the same audience. Well, I thought it would always be the same. The people have been laughing on one day in one place, and tumbleweed the next day, and the hilarious point that I think, well, that's not even funny, and they're laughing. But as long as they, it's a roller coaster when they find the point to laugh and when to relax, and I just realised it's something they can't control. So
they're organic in their own right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
No 2 nights the same, as it were. So.
No, and it's. I suppose what matters is that if you get to the end of the piece and everybody's happy, that's what matters. If everybody's applauding at the end of each song, or they're, going out happy, which they all are, that's what it is. But I always stand outside as soon as it's finished
and listen.
And that's what's made me very happy. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Wonderful.
Well, when people talk about the show on the way out, and it's not just leaving the venue but crossing the road to get away as far as possible. I have been in a show that actually was this was a couple of years ago, I won't name it, it was so diabolical, and then bless them, someone was taken seriously ill halfway through the performance. I mean, I hope they were okay, but they properly had a seizure, and the show had to be stopped, and they had to be removed by ambulance. I mean, it's a dreadful tragedy, really. And the front of house people had to come out and stand on the stage and sorry, we'll be resuming in 15 minutes when the gentleman's been taken away. It was like a scene from the Old Testament, and particularly Exodus. People ran for the hills.
Oh,
it was a
dear.
full auditorium on the first part. I imagine about 6 people went back for the second part.
Oh, goodness me.
Well, yeah. Anyway, that's just by the by. So you're not getting that.
Describing a nightmare to me there.
Yeah. So tell me. You say everyone, the audiences are different every day, but there must be some things that the audiences are all appreciating. What seems to be just 1 or 2 examples of the things where the audience have said, you now know that this is absolutely surefire hit. And aren't there 1 or 2 bits where there's sort of unanimity where you think, actually, I might need to do a bit of tweaking?
That's a difficult question because honestly, I could sit down with a script and all the songs now and do that all the way through
I
it.
suppose.
There's little bits that I'd like to change and hone, but the things that I can tell are definitely working is we seem to be connecting with people about the time, the disappearing of time. That's the thing that everybody that's come out that I've talked to after has said. It just made me realise I spend all my spare time on my iPad or whatever. That's not time. Time is spent with my family. And I know this sounds awfully cheesy, but it's true.
It is, yeah.
And and if we've connected with people to make them realise that, and remind ourselves and to do something about it, that's a win-win for me. So that's the strongest positive. And people saying. The guy that I talked to from New York who said it yesterday, he said, I didn't sleep last night, I just sang the songs. I didn't sleep. So the fact that we've got earworms, it's the...
Oh yes, they're very catchy, they've got good hooks. Do you have a favourite song, I should ask? I mean, I know it's a cheesy question, but...
Do I have a favourite song?
Or does it change every day?
The one that means the most to me is Make It Count, because it has the greatest message of what this is all about. But in terms of... I'm most proud of... Damaged, because that's the one that seems to get the most emotional reaction. I love it all, and I don't, that's an awful thing to say about my own. I am, yes,
it's not
I am
an
a proud
awful thing
father.
to say. It's a marvellous thing to say because you've got to love it first. I mean, frankly, if I always say, it's like everything else. When you're having a conversation, if you're enjoying the conversation, then hopefully someone else in the conversation is enjoying it as well.
Yes.
If you've written a show that you like, then hopefully other people will like it as well.
Yes.
But if you've written a show but actually you're just writing a show for the purposes of writing a show and you don't have any connection with it, then how can you even have the shame to ask other people to enjoy it? Forgive me. So what you said is exactly as it should be, to be honest.
Well, I couldn't be more connected to it, probably too connected. Sometimes I've had to make sure I keep myself distanced from it to make sure that I'm being objective, and that's why a good director is very important. That's where you have to trust people's opinions. If everybody says one thing about it and it's a repetitive comment, then there's something you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And the longer you ignore that, the longer it's going to take for you to get your show right.
You do have to cauterise things. Yeah, it's well, Mark Twain used to say, "I'm killing my babies when I edit." But but it's true. You do. You have to make things better.
Yes.
Other people are often the best way into that.
Yes.
With the best will in the world. But it is a remarkably sound piece. It's a remarkably. It just looks polished and professional from
That's
first to
great
last.
to hear.
You were speaking about the catchiness of the songs, and it is possible for people to hear them as well, isn't it? Because
It is.
actually, there's an album, I think.
There is, yes. We've not released it yet. We've just recorded it and had it for CD sales just for Edinburgh, just to get some feedback for it. But it's already selling very well. But I'll be putting it on iTunes and such when we get back, so it will be available for the soundtrack from the show. And it's yes, I'm amazed again. For people to come out and want to buy the CD, that's good.
On a first hearing as well.
Wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yes. So, tell me, how can people get in contact with you online and things like that? Do you have a
Yes,
web page?
we have a web page. We do, yes. We are www.stopthetrainmusical.com. On Twitter, we're at STTmusical. And Instagram, it's Stop the Train Musical. I'm trying to think, what other forms of social media do we have?
Well, as a company, do you have your own website as well?
Well, as we're Brandly, it's a new word.
Oh, Mr. Shakespeare, you've just coined something.
A brand newly formed company.
I like that even better.
Which is More to Life Productions. This is our first production, and really, to be honest, we haven't. We just literally got going. This was put together, a bank account, a couple of weeks before we came here.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so we are a brand new company.
However, presumably you can update, you can put links on your Stop the Train websites and things like that
Precisely.
as you infrastructuralise yourself up.
Yes.
If we're talking new words, I don't see why we shouldn't. Well, have there been any songs which were in the development stage which didn't make it as well? Ilya presumably had a different song.
She did, yes.
Yeah.
She did, called In My Country, which obviously is on the cutting floor now.
Yes.
It was fun. It seemed to get a reaction, but again, it's got to be about what's best for the show, and that's gone. But that's the only. Oh, sorry, there is another one. There was a ballad called "I Had to Know," which was another ballad for the main character, Chloe Lambert, main female character, and that we just felt it didn't need another ballad. Originally, the show was also 45 minutes longer.
Oh, was it?
And I've cut it down for Edinburgh.
Once again, everyone does.
Yes, it has to be done. And that was one of the ones that, even though that was one of my favourite songs you asked before about which is my favourites, but it had to go in the concept, in the context of the length of the show and where it went. So it's hard to cut,
Yes.
hard to edit, but
it still exists, doesn't it? So,
it still exists.
It's just not in the show.
Precisely.
My friend, I'm going to mention him a lot, his name is Michael Gordon Shapiro, and he's an American composer, and he was very impressed. He said one of the things he particularly liked as well was the strong delineation of characters, that they all spoke with their own, and when I say accent, I don't just mean regional accent, they were who they were. They
Yes.
had the right dialogue for the character they were being, and it was very easy and very clear to work out who was doing what, even if, they all had their secrets, but, for example, you had Nikki, I think it is, who's the
Yes.
sort of the
beautician.
Yeah, the beautician, that's a better way of putting it, absolutely, who has a very strong character. And is a very feisty character as well, and you also straddle class as well, Forgive me, she is. I don't mean it. This is merely shorthand. She is working class. Your lawyer is middle
Yes.
class. You've got different parts of the country represented as well.
Yes.
It's a good old smorgasbord. But developing that dialogue, is that something? Forgive me. Is that something that's developed over time, or is that you actually able to speak with different tongues when you're writing your scripts?
I do hear characters in my head, and I'm a listener. I listen to people all the time. I'm listening.
Well, you were saying, yes.
Yeah, I do like listening to people's accents, the way they communicate. So, and I've spent lots of time on trains, listening in and watching how these people don't communicate, and they have their entire lives down the phone. So it's very easy to build these characters very quickly. All these people are real, they're exaggerated for the sake of effect, but they are very, very real.
Well, funny enough, there's once again, in terms of a narrative, there's another device which I think is a rather nice contrapunctual point, if I can be so poncy. I can, by the way. And that is the train staff. Now, we don't see a guard come through the train, and it's clearly an express, by the way, very impressive, because it starts and goes all the way through. But for the purposes of this, there's a conceit whereby we hear the conductors, as you do on any train, the guard or conductor. You also see him on the on the screen, which is actually very nice. So you've got this lugubrious character who is the train guard, but actually he comes up. He's got a few messages periodically, but one of his principal messages is that one of his train team.
Yes.
I think it's the lady on the buffet.
That's right, Marion.
Our
lovely Marion.
Our lovely Marion on the buffet. she it's her last day.
Correct.
And he's asking people to sort of thank her, and then of course there's a bit of a misunderstanding, so he has to come on. So he's got some good comic business, which acts as a nice counterfoil for the tension and the jeopardy going on
That's
in the
exactly
carriage.
why it's there, yes.
But also, it also works as a counterfoil for what the message of what's going on in the carriage is about, because actually there is a community on the train, which everyone ignores. We forget about the staff, but they work every day
Absolutely.
On that train. They aren't just going to work, they are there doing their work on the train. And of course, the guard would know Marion on the buffet car,
Yes.
and whoever's, if it's a regular driver or whoever it is, there would be a small community of people who are infrastructurally in that train supporting the customers.
Well, the idea of Marion came from I was on a Preston to Euston train about a year and a half ago, and there was a lady that had obviously just been talking to the guard. They were very close to each other, and then she was sent down the carriage with a large black bin bag for the rubbish, and I was so upset by the way that people didn't even acknowledge her. And I thought she's a woman doing a really important job. The place would be full of rubbish everywhere, and she was lovely. She was very smiley, very good about the whole thing, and people were just lifting their papers or whatever it was, their sandwich packets, dropping them in, not even looking at her. And I thought it was disgusting. So that stayed with me, and that's where her character came from.
Well, good for Marion, because in a way that she, the woman on the train, is immortalised in a rather lovely way. But I do love the fact that you have these characters who genuinely do like each other and care for each other and connect with each other, and then you've got the commuters who, at the beginning, don't.
Yes.
So once again, there's lots of lovely references and counter references and lights being cast in different directions. So what next for Stop the Train? Surely Stop the Train cannot stop.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, the reason we were here is to get noticed. That was the whole idea of it. I mean, we have had offers of investment beforehand, but I've not known which way to go. And I thought the best thing to do is to come up here, let people see it, let the industry react, and ideally, in the perfect world, somebody come along and say either we want to co-produce, or we'd like to tour it, or we'd like to take it to such a theatre. And we've already had a couple of those inklings, which is wonderful.
Sounds
after 4 days. So here we go at the end of a couple of weeks.
But you are here in Edinburgh, and you're here until when?
Till the last show is on the 28th.
Oh, so you are here right to
the end.
Yes,
right to the end.
Good. That's really good.
And so far, this is our 5th show today, and we're sold out so far. So
get them while you can.
Yes, absolutely.
But isn't that amazing? Just to go straight in on a.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
You are very lucky, although you deserve it because you put the work in. So it's not a fluke. This is even down to you've got a good logo. I'm staring at your chest, but you've got it on your T-shirt.
Yes, I mean this again was months of playing sort of thing. We have spent quite a bit on advertising. We've tried to get everything across there, so it's all the same. We've gone for the bright colours. We've put it on T-shirts. We've put it on flags. We've got it on stands. We've got it on posters.
So but it stands out. Yeah,
that's great.
Yes,
that's
it's very good. And it's just it's black and yellow for the most part, with just a hint of red, and the red is significant. So,
it's very good.
So you've still got shows to do in Edinburgh, but when the dust has settled on Edinburgh, and hopefully the show will go on further, but what will you take from Edinburgh, your Edinburgh experience?
Oh,
that could be personal,
that's
professional.
That's a difficult question. Well, on a personal level, it's really made me realise how much you are a result of your team. That if there's one weakness, the whole thing falls apart. When everybody is strong, it can move forward. A perfect example of this is we had one day that we knew was coming up that was very low on sales, and it's historically the same for everybody. It seems to be a dip day. And I asked the gang yesterday. I said, we want to get this sell out. Would you go out there and promote? And they were all tired, and they all got out on the mile, and they worked their socks off. And that day's now sold out.
Oh, fantastic!
And that's all down to it's down to them, and it's that team. And again, it's like an emotional plea, and the rest of it. But these guys are absolutely wonderful, and without that team, that's the experience I'll get from this, that you know that if you're not working coherently and cohesively, the thing cannot work. You know, you're as good as your weakest link.
Absolutely. Well, Rick, it's been wonderful talking to you.
And you,
about
thank you very much.
a wonderful 5-star show. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Baby girl, it's a big, big world and there's many fish in the sea. I'm not trying to roam, but I'm flesh and bone, so you'd better keep your eye on me. I'm not trying to flirt, I'm not trying to hurt, don't even wanna be free. But when I see them walk and I hear them talk, well, that's the end of me. They got bumps and curves just for hors d'oeuvres, and I haven't even mentioned the lips. They've got wild eyes that make you lie and legs right up to their hips. They're from outer space, they're the pharaoh race, and we all know who's in control. But with the lick of their lips and the swing of their hips, well, a man can lose his soul. Stop, 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 stop it, I like it. Why don't you stop, 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 it feels good. It's so wrong, I'm getting excited. Please don't stop, though I know you should. Take Adam and Eve, now Eve won't leave till Adam tastes her wares. When a woman wants, you better say yes, or you better start saying your prayers. In every place there's a pretty face, a tempting variety. But I'm not looking, not available, please don't tempt me. Stop, 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 stop it, I like it. Why don't you stop, 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 it feels good. It's so wrong, I'm getting excited. Please don't stop, though I know you should. 5'2", eyes blue, skin as smooth as cream. Not to have her a nightmare, but to have her a dream. Eloquent and radiant with 2 first-class degrees, and the kind of hips which fingertips were invented just to tease. She gave me the eye, and I ignored her. She gave me the eye, so I looked away. She gave me the eye, and so I sighed a sigh. I'm weak, and I'm being led astray, astray. Stop, 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 stop it, I like it. Why don't you stop, 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 it feels good. It's so wrong, I'm getting excited. Please don't stop, though I know you should. Dark and dirty, round about 30 with 42 on top. She knows to wine and all things fine and likes to dance till you drop. I said, I like to sing, she said, I like to swing, but I didn't see her moving her feet. Then she stroked my thigh and looked me right in the eye and said something that I can't repeat. Oh, I like it. Stop, 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 it feels good. It's so wrong, I'm getting excited. Oh, please don't stop, though I know you should. Please don't stop, though I know you should.
Musical talk. And there we are, another song from Stop the Train called Stop It, I Like It, one of the songs we mentioned in the discussion. Well, I do hope that the continued conversation about Stop the Train that we've had on and off over the many months since August here on Musical Talk, and this interview today, has whetted your appetite to find out more about this show. Because you can. It does have a website, www.stopthetrainmusical.com, and there you can see photographs from its production, you can also see videos, and there's an opportunity to buy the score on CD should you be interested. And as you've heard from the recordings in this programme, it's very professionally done. I really enjoyed Stop the Train, as I imagine you've probably gathered by now, and it's a show I hope will have future traction. I do use that word appropriately, I do understand the railway reference. It's certainly a show that deserves to have a future, and if it goes on national tour or gets reproduced, I will certainly do my best to see it again. It was that enjoyable. However, for now, I think that's it for this episode of Musical Talk. There'll be another along next week, unless there's points failure just outside Crewe, or someone steals the overhead cables. But for the time being, there's little left for me to do but to say goodbye. And also to introduce one final song, so I shall do both of those now, in the order I've identified. Goodbye, that was step 1, and step 2 therefore is merely me saying, and now another song from Stop the Train called We All Fall Down.
Goodbye. Sleep well, my friend. Farewell to beginnings. Hello to the end. Sail away now. Let your journey begin. One gate closes and another lets you in. One sun sets and another will rise. Nothing ever happens but constant surprise. Wipe those tears from your eyes. Goodbye, yesterday's gone. We'll pick up the pieces and soldier on. Don't cry, tomorrow will come. Darkness will yield to the light of the sun. When we all fall down, we all fall down. There's no use complaining, memories remain in your mind. So I say goodbye, yesterday's gone. We'll pick up the pieces and soldier on, and pray their souls to be free, as I'd hope for you and you'd hope for me. When we all fall down, we all fall down. These are the moments we search for the strength to survive. So I say goodbye, but never forget those that we've lost, we've cherished or met. Don't cry, tomorrow will come. Darkness will yield to the light of the sun. Sing with one strong voice, one strong voice. No use complaining, memories remain in your mind. So I say goodbye, yesterday's gone. We'll pick up the pieces and soldier on, and pray their souls to be free, as I'd hope for you and you'd hope for me. Goodbye, yesterday's gone. We'll pick up the pieces and soldier on, and pray their souls to be free, as I'd hope for you and you'd hope for me. Goodbye, yesterday's gone. We'll pick up the pieces and soldier on. Don't cry, tomorrow will come. Darkness will yield to the light of the sun. Darkness will yield to the light of the sun.
This episode of Musical Talk edited and presented by Thos Ribbits. Copyright Musical Talk 2017. Except for the songs where the copyright remains with the creators. And my thanks go to Rick Gard for allowing me to play these wonderful songs in this episode. To find out more about the world of musical talk and listen to past episodes, go along to our brand new website, musicaltalkpodcast.weebly.com, or subscribe to us on iTunes, and follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can, at musicaltalkthos.
However, I'd like, first of all, if I may, because as you know, the volume in places like this goes up and down,
Yes,
the show
yes.
starts and finishes. Obviously, some is just empty, so it'll all quieten off in a minute. So I may come in and I may go out, and I'd ask you to do
No
the same.
problem.
But could I have a level?
Of course, my name's Rick Gard. My name's Rick Gard. My name's Rick Gard. That's my
Do you
name.
know, I think they're so good they named you thrice. Good, that's perfect. So what I normally ask people to do, if I may, because I normally link it with a studio link in the first place,
Yes.
to sort of establish what we're talking about. And I ask someone to tell me their name, their involvement in the show, which is quite extensive, I think, in your case, and the name of the show. You'd be surprised how many people forget what might be deemed to be almost the most important part. And then we'll just sort of take it from there, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
And as I say, do not hesitate to interject if there's something you don't like, or if you
course.
cough, or you spend a bit of time going, I'll think about that. I take all that out, and you look
I'm
like
with
a
you.
genius.
The art of editing.
It goes a very long way. We'll sort it in post, as they say.